Before we can even start a digital painting, we get hit with a choice. What size is this picture going to be? There are three main things to deal with: the number of pixels, the physical dimensions for printing, and the number of pixels printed per inch. What you do with those depends on what the art is for, whether your art is meant to be seen on screens, whether it's meant for printing, or whether it's meant to be just for fun or practice and you don't know if it's going to be printed or not. You just want to get started and you need a size to work with and you don't want to just pull a bunch of random numbers out of your head in case that turns out to be a really bad idea. Let's begin by looking at a picture in different sizes just to start getting a feel for what it looks like in practice. This one is 8,900 pixels by 6,500. In screen terms, it's easily bigger than 8K Ultra HD. It can print out at about 29 inches or 75 centimeters across at high quality, or double that at decent quality. In camera terms, it's about 58 megapixels. Now let's halve the dimensions to get a quarter of the number of pixels. 4,450 by 3,250. This is larger than 4K Ultra HD. Print size will be about 15 inches or 37 centimeters across at high quality. And as a photo, it would be a bit over 14 megapixels. Let's shrink it by the same percentage again to 2,225 pixels by 1,625. Full HD fits inside this fairly easily. The picture could print at about 7.5 inches or 19 centimeters across at high quality, and it's roughly 3.5 megapixels. And down again one more time to only 1,113 by 813 pixels. While this is pretty tiny, it's still a lot bigger than DVD resolution. At high quality, it would print out at less than 4 inches or 10 centimeters across, which is okay for a birthday card or photo album print, and it's just under 1 megapixel. Let's get down to details. If your art is meant to be seen on a screen, it's pretty simple. All you need to know is the number of pixels on the screen your art is intended for. If it's Full HD, you can type in 1920 pixels wide by 1080 pixels high, and then just ignore the rest of the numbers, click OK, and start painting on a Full HD image. If your art is to be printed, things get a bit trickier, but not too much. Your software may even have presets that do the work for you. For example, if you want to print on US letter paper, you might be able to just pick that preset and it will put the physical dimensions in automatically. Otherwise, you can just measure the paper or look up the info online and then type the details in yourself, making sure to see if you're typing in inches, centimeters, or millimeters. However, these measurements only tell the computer the physical size of the final print, not the quality. That's where the pixels per inch part comes in. This tells the printer how many pixels to print per inch. The more pixels there are, the higher the potential for quality and detail. This can be pretty much any number, depending on the printer's limitations, but there are a couple of common ones we can start with. For high quality printing, 300 pixels per inch is a good one. For decent quality, try 150. For screens, two common numbers are 72 and 96, but it doesn't actually matter. It only really matters for print. You can actually change this number later on. For example, I can load up a picture which is 300 pixels per inch, click image size, make sure the image doesn't change when I change the pixels per inch, then type in 150. The actual picture hasn't changed at all. It's exactly the same number of pixels, but those pixels will now print out at a larger size. This means you've got some options even after you've finished your image, but it doesn't mean you can start with a small image and magically make it bigger later on without losing any quality. In that way, it's no different from blowing up a photo. If you want to print it big, start big. In fact, I recommend working larger than you need to so you've got more room to move later on. In that case, adding more pixels or centimeters when starting your image might be a good idea. You can always crop or shrink the artwork back down later on. If you're printing, having a little extra room also means that you can trim the edges down to the right size and not worry about having little strips of white. By the way, the tools I'm using here should have equivalents in most worthwhile digital painting software. For example, instead of image size like I've got here in my old version of Photoshop, Krita has Scale Image to New Size, and Clip Studio Paint has Change Image Resolution, although some of the details may be different. Now for the paintings with unknown purposes. I suggest a starting point of 4,530 by 2,800 pixels. You can go bigger or smaller, wider or taller or whatever you like. It's just a starting point that you can completely change, but here is why I'm suggesting it. First, it's a bit bigger than 4K Ultra HD, so it's good for a lot of screens. It's also bigger than A4 or US letter paper when printed at 300 pixels per inch, so it's good for a lot of print stuff as well. In camera terms, it's about 12 megapixels, just in case that helps you visualize it, and the overall image proportions are based on the so-called golden ratio, which might be useful for some people. It's really up to you, and the more pictures you paint, the more you'll figure out what suits you best in your journey of making good-looking art.